And so I'll take this as smart object, which is, I never save it with that name. So MAS is for master, and I'll call this seals on rock. Okay. I'll save that. And you want to save the image that has all your layers in it in case you decide you want to go back and tweak the colors or change something, then you've got all that stuff there. But I usually find that, I want to be able to make prints up to 24 inches wide, and that's for my little Rebel XTI, 10 megapixel camera, which I use in my kayak because if I drop it, I didn't lose too much, So what I do then is to make a print, I'll do image duplicate, and I'll say duplicate merge layers only, and I'll call this the sharp version. Okay. And what that does is it makes a copy and it flattens it basically, okay? And then to do the crop, because actually, that stuff is still there if you look in the other screen mode, and we want to get rid of that gray stuff. So to do the crop, then what you can do is just command click on this mask and then just say image crop, okay? And then that stuff's gone, okay? And you can throw that away then. Okay, so then what I'll do in my layers palette for sharpening is I'll call this one, I'll lock it so it can't move, and I'll call this one not sharpened. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I've got such an indignant look, like, how could you invade my waters? Go away. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of that layer, okay, and then I'm going to go into the Smart Sharpen filter. So that's Filter Sharpen, Smart Sharpen, or for me it's Shift F4. Whoops. Oh, Command Shift F4. There we go. Okay. Oh wait, no, I forgot to res it up. Sorry. So looking at this, I've only got 3,000 pixels here. So if I want to print this at 360 DPI, I can only make like a 9-inch wide print. So maybe I'll do 270. Then I got a 12-inch print. But let's say I want to make a 24-inch print, okay? So what I want to do then is go into my little action things. And I have this thing called res up by 10. But what it actually does is it does 7 image size commands, and each one reses the image up by 10%, okay? Because I found that if you res it up in small increments, it's actually better than just doing one big jump, okay? So I'll just run that little res up.
So when you set that up, did you just res up the resolution, or?
I just went into image size and I set the percent to, I set it to percent, and then I said do 110%. And then I saved that little action step, and then you can just, copy that same step over and over again in the actions palette. And if you do it 7 times, it's pretty much doubles the pixels, okay?
Straight by cubic or sharper or smoother?
I'm just using straight by cubic. Okay, so now if I go back to image size, now I've got a 23-inch print. Okay, so you want to do that before you sharpen the image. Okay, so then we'll go back to the Smart Sharpen filter. Okay, and I pretty much always work in advanced and more accurate mode. I mean, why would you not do that? You know, and I'm looking at this on 100%. And what I usually find is, you know, if you're looking at it at 100%, you're seeing every last little defect and stuff like that. So when you actually look at the print, you're not going to be looking at it that closely. So a lot of times I'll go down to 50%. You don't want to view it at some odd some odd zoom factor, because then you see artifacts on the screen that aren't really there. Okay, so 100% or 50% or 25% works better. Okay, so this particular image, it's a bit soft because I was in a kayak and I was rocking around, and those guys were moving too. So I'll do a radius of 1.5. So the softer the image, the more you have to bump up the radius. And then the reason I use the Smart Sharpen is because it has these little fade adjustments. Okay, so like for example, you know, if you sharpen the dark shadows too much, you start getting pixelated. Okay, so like if I set the fade here to 0, you'll notice if you look in here and down here that you start getting more detail. Okay, but sometimes you get, you know, weird artifacts. Okay, on this particular image, it's not too bad. So probably I would set the fade at, say, 5 here. Okay, see the difference? In the really dark shadows, it just sharpens it a little bit less. Okay, and then on the highlight end, you know, if you set the fade to 0, then all these little specular highlights just pop a lot. Okay, see, there's before, there's after. Okay, but if I bump the highlight fade up to 20%, they don't pop quite so much. Okay, so that's what I like about this sharpening thing. The thing I don't like about it, though, is there's no threshold setting. So if you have a noise in your sky or something like that, it will enhance that. Okay, so like you'll notice, well, I don't know. Like the original sharpening filter has this thing called threshold, which, and I'll show you what that does in a minute, but this image looks okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that setting there. Okay. My son has the fastest computer in the family now because he wanted a portable, so I was going to give him mine, and then I was going to get a new one. But he's 14, and he checked out the graphics card on mine, and it wasn't good enough for the game that he wanted. So he had to get the new one, and Dad gets to keep the old one. So. Okay, so now the thing I like about this, the thing with the layers, is that, you know, once you've done something, you can do a reality check. So you can say, well, did I really improve things there? Well, that's why I started. Here's where I am now. Okay, so it does look better. But, you know, again, some of these guys are sort of soft. So the other thing that I can do sometimes, if I really want to pump up the size, is I'll take, well, first of all, I'll write down what I did here. So Smart Sharpen, 150, 1.5, 1 minus 5, 1 minus 20. Okay, so that way, if I make a print and I'm not happy with what I get, I can change it, and I can sort of remember what I did. Okay. But like if you look at these waves here, some of them are still a bit soft. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of that layer. Okay, and then I'm going to set the luminosity. I'm going to set the blend mode to luminosity, and I'm going to set the opacity of that layer to 20%. So if I just type a 2, just as long as I'm not in a brush tool, it will set the opacity of that layer to 20%. Okay. Now, what I'm going to